Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Arden, and welcome to Monday Night Live. Thank you for joining, and a very warm welcome to you all. I've had a couple of months break. I've been recharging and rebooting and rethinking and doing all sorts of interesting things, getting all sorts of ideas as well. So I'm going to ask our guests what extraordinary things they've been doing over the last 2 months, what they've learned, and what we can take from it. Because on Monday Night Live, we get lifelong learners, people who are just interested in continuing that journey to learn and also sharing it with other people, which is really most important. So I'm just going to tell you a couple of things that I've been doing. Number one, I was privileged to meet Tracy Hooper, her husband Henry, and her daughter Margaret at Heathrow Airport. Although they were three hours late because they missed the connection at Seattle, but luckily with an app I knew that the plane was still somewhere over the Atlantic, and we jumped on the river bus. Now, most tourists don't know about the river bus. Of course, they get on the tourist boat, which costs about £50, and we went down to Greenwich to the Cutty Sark, had a couple of pints in a pub that was built before America was discovered. And then we came back, and Tracy's joining us next week, and I'll come to Tracy in a minute. And then my son and I, we crossed the Arctic Circle, which was always on my bucket list. Absolutely fantastic, on the Norwegian coastal boat, which is fantastic. And I was really taken, and we ended up in Tromsø, which is 69 degrees and 30 seconds, almost as close to the Arctic Circle as you can get. And then John Baker twisted my arm to MC the folk festival at Swanage. What do I know about folk music? Absolutely nothing. And John's going to talk about that in a minute. And I picked up a book in Waterloo Station by a neuroscientist journalist called Caroline Williams. And I was so taken by the book, I bought a second book. I connected with her on LinkedIn. I met her for a coffee, and I persuaded her to come on Monday Night Live in a month's time. So I've had a great 2 months thinking about all sorts of things. And now I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to hand over to Tracy Hooper in Portland, Oregon, to tell us what she's learned and done that's extraordinary in the last 2 months. Tracy, are you there?
I am here. Good day, everyone. The highlight of my summer and Derek's break was meeting Derek Arden. Derek and I had met through Patricia Fripp 5 years ago during COVID when Monday Night Live was launched. And I always wanted a chance to meet him. We were invited to a wedding in Ireland, and I thought, yay, we'll make a trip of it. And we flew to Heathrow and met Derek, and I'll talk more about that next week. But what a fantastic experience to be in beautiful England. The last time I had been there was in 2006, and I was freshly recuperating from breast cancer, and I had almost no hair on my head. And my mother's husband, who traveled around the world for his business, said, I'd like to treat you and your mother to a trip wherever you want to go. And I said, well, I'd love to go to London. And Mom said, that's great. So the two of us were in London for a week. And that was the last time I had been there. Now I'm happy to say, 25 years later, here I am. Thank you. Thank you, God. And the highlight, really one of the highlights, and I'll talk about this more next week, was seeing the Museum of Natural History. When you walk in that building and you see that big blue whale, it's overwhelming. And the other part of it, which I will also speak to next week, is how many people were there. I mean, people complain that it's crowded. I thought it was marvelous. Families, children, people of all ages, they were there to look at the dinosaurs and look at the fish, and it was fantastic. And it was a dream come true for Henry because he loves everything dinosaur related. And we just had a ball, but that was one of the real highlights. And not only the contents of the building, the Museum of Natural History, but the floors, the mosaic floors, the beautiful marble, all the displays, everything was done so magnificently. That was a real highlight for us. So more next week. Thank you, Derek, for the opportunity. I love your country.
Tracy, thanks for supporting Monday Night Live over 5 years, and it was great to meet you. And there I was with a quiet coffee in Costa Coffee in Terminal 3, and out comes this American woman and gives me a great big hug. I wasn't even paying attention. But you should tell your daughter that there are 5 terminals at Heathrow, and you should communicate, as you're a communication expert, which terminal you're in. But there we
Right.
go. Fantastic. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to go down to Swanage to John Baker and to Angie Phillips, who almost single-handedly organised the Swanage Folk Festival, which was 3 days, 2,000 people raising money for charity. John, Angie, are you there? John first.
I'm here, Derek. Thank you. I'm going to start by just saying thank you publicly to Derek, because he really helped me out by emceeing for me, and that did a superb job, despite not knowing what folk music was. So we didn't tell the audience that bit, and he pulled it off. So that was good. But just to give, I don't think, Derek, you had an idea for the scale of what this thing was before we started, did you? And
No, not at all.
he had heard me bang on about this folk festival that we organised, and he was just like, yeah. So I put this is the third one I've done. It's been going for 33 years. And this festival was 55 sets by 51 bands in 10 different venues, plus 63 groups of dancers, on average 10 of them in each group, performing in 10 different venues and filling the town with colour, dance and music, plus 10 workshops, enjoyed by about 5,000 people who drank 3,000 pints of beer and cider, and all managed by, and here's the amazing bit for me, all managed by 10 unpaid committee members who who grab another 70 recruits to volunteer for the weekend. So when we say we fill the town with music and dance and smiles, that's what I mean. So huge in that sense. And yeah, great weekend, and I'm just about recovering from it a week later, and which is superb. But I think you talked,
John, what was
Derek.
the most difficult thing? What was the most difficult thing that you faced? Because you did look stressed a couple of times
I
when I
can't
bumped
imagine
into you.
why.
Just a teeny bit.
I think it varies depending on looking back on it now, but just actually coordinating that many people, and when you've got multiple things going on, which you can't really predict what's going on there. But I guess for me, a couple of things I look back at it and go, two big things I would learn, if I can put it like that. One is that there's an old saying in the UK, which is "fine words, butter no parsnips," which basically means if your gut shouts, listen. If your gut shouts there's a complete lack of congruence in what somebody's saying and doing, really listen. And there's a few people that you go back and you go, had I listened harder, or had I taken action, then that would have saved some of the stress that you were just mentioning about, Derek. So that one's, I think, is a big one. And the other one for me is, I look at the team that as we picked up 3-4 years ago, and the other one that I think about is all that is gold does not glitter. Some team members really come to the fore if you give them space and respect. And that sometimes it's really easy to kind of go, oh, that's the person that's always quiet. That's the person that always this. Suddenly, give them the space, give them the respect, and they really will grow. So I think that's an important one to do as well. So
Brilliant, John.
Those are the two big ones I'll pick out of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, congratulations, well done. And you had a lot of hair before you started the Swanage Folk Festival.
It is rumoured, yeah.
Yeah, it is rumoured. Now I'm going to go across to Angie Phillips. Angie made the mistake of marrying John probably last year, didn't you, Angie? And I fell off my bike and couldn't make their wedding. I was in the hospital with my finger
I've heard of rubbish excuses, Derek, but that one
yeah.
that was better than dog ate my homework. So
I know. Well, Angie, last time I saw you last Saturday week, you were trying to pull the tent together and tell people that the health and safety people said there couldn't be so many people in the tent. So what were your takeaways?
Coordination and communication is so important during the festival. It is up until coming up and towards it as well. But actually during the festival, it's people listening, finding out, doing their own jobs, and then crossing over and standing in for people who perhaps, you know, they've disappeared for 10 minutes. You've got to sort their part of the organisation out. Closing those tent flaps was a big job actually, because the wind was so bad. It was like a wind tunnel throwing through. Also, I take over management of the marquee, and there's 350 people sitting and 50 people standing. And Saturday afternoon, because of one of the local bands, I had to stop people coming in. And it's keeping that smile on your face and saying, "I'm sorry, but you can't come in," and they're having a go at you. But I've got a ticket. No, I'm sorry, we are up to capacity because of health and safety and insurance. So it is being able to keep smiling throughout the weekend and not going completely mad. So yeah.
And you're a graphic designer. That was a fabulous program that you designed. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, well, when we joined the committee, I offered to rebrand the festival. So every year, I started off by redoing all the logos and developing a style and a brand consistency throughout everything. So every year, I've got to come up with a slightly different variation on our branding and come up with something that everybody loves. So it goes from posters to programs to T-shirts and badges, and then vinyl massive banners and flags and merchandise. So I'm lucky enough to get that, but I do get my own way most of the time, so it's quite nice.
Well, I'm not surprised about that, knowing you, that you get your own way. I hope that doesn't mean to say I've got to buy another T-shirt for next year.
Oh yeah, there'll be a different T-shirt next year.
Oh, come on.
All the dancers collect the badges every year, so every badge has to be, every year everything has to be different to a degree. So we keep the logos. Somebody said to me the second year, "Oh, are you going to change the logo?" No, that's not the idea of a brand.
Wow. No, that's brilliant. Well, congratulations on what you did, and it was a pleasure to be part of it. And I look forward to seeing you for a pint in Swanage shortly. Now I'm going to go to Max Twynham. You're there, Max, aren't you? Max,
I'm there, Derek. How you doing?
Business partner Tom came up to me about a year ago and said to me, "Derek, will you teach us everything you know?" Well, I don't know very much, as you know, in my years, but I said, "Yes, but what are you going to do for me?" And they said to me, "Derek, you need a TikTok channel." I said, "Why do I need a TikTok channel? Don't be absolutely ridiculous." They said, "You need a TikTok channel." So I said, "Okay, well, you sort me out a TikTok channel, and I'll teach you everything I know." And so we've been doing that for 9 months, and Max will tell you a bit more about it. Max, because some of the people on here might want a TikTok channel, mightn't they?
Well, yeah, Derek Arden, TikTok star. Who'd have thought it? Certainly not you, Derek, I think.
No way. No way.
But such a synergy, actually, Derek. I'll say wisdom. I think wisdom sounds better than years and years and years of experience. So we'll say Derek's wisdom and TikTok, the social media algorithm. The two things work so well together. And actually, Derek, we started just chopping down some of your longer form YouTube videos. There's a few on there to do with car salesmen and the sneaky tricks that you're up against when you're buying a car. And chopping those up with a program called Wizard, which is spelt wizard, but with V for Victor at the start instead of a W. And Wizard takes the videos, I think it uses AI to actually work where the natural breaks are. And so it snips one of Derek's 10-minute videos into sort of 10 to 15 clips. And with minimal tidying up, it's given you the captions, it's given you the pacing, it's given you a nice video title. And I think with no expectations, we just started posting every single day using consistent sort of hashtags, hashtag negotiation, hashtag skills. And before we knew it, Derek's done 100,000 views on his first video. No one could have predicted that. And we're at a stage now where after about 2 months, we are at 900,000 views in total. So it's remarkable. I'd love to take more credit, but really it's down to what Derek is saying. And you can tell that Derek knows what he's talking about when he's on the camera. He switches into a mode, he locks in. And yeah, it's been fantastic, Derek.
Well, Max, you persuaded me, and Max is there telling me what to say every 30 seconds. We were doing them. We did them in my garden, and on Saturday we did them at Arsenal. We sneaked in behind where Arsene Wenger, where Arteta sits, and did a live one. But good fun, but I don't know what it means. I have no idea what it means, but Max is very persuasive, and so is his business partner, Tom. So thanks for what you're doing. If there's any questions for Max afterwards, then please, please stay on. Let's go to Albania. I'm not sure if it's France now, to Tony Woodall, who's been doing a bit of walking over the last 2 months. Tony, what have you been up to?
Well, I am still in Albania. I went back here, but in the end of July, I received my Albania residency. And as soon as I got that, now that I'm an Albanian resident, I took off to France for a few weeks. And as most of you may have seen my videos and my talks about my caminos, I walked across Spain from the French border, Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, to the Atlantic Ocean. I walked up Portugal into Santiago and to the ocean. And I wanted to continue. One of the reasons I moved to Albania is the access and inexpensive access to other areas of Europe from here. So I wanted to go do the what they call the Via Podiensis or Podiensis, or the Le Puy Camino from Le Puy-en-Velay to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, France. Which is another 780-kilometer trail that I wanted to walk. So I went and I flew to Lyon, France, stayed there a couple of days to check out Lyon and the gastronomy that they have there, which is wonderful. And then I went to Le Puy-en-Velay and started walking. So averaging about 24 kilometers a day. And it was actually one of the toughest walks that I've ever done. The ins and outs of the towns are just, up and down, and usually very steep and rocky, and a lot tougher than some of the other hikes that I've done. But it was very fulfilling, very beautiful villages. You're going through some, very medieval villages, such as the one in my background, which is at Estaing, France, and one of the big castles there behind me. You can see I stayed right next door to that. But it's just an amazing part of my Camino journeys. I only did 11 days. After 11 days of walking in 38 to 40 degree weather. And then my original plan was to go to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port and then cross into Spain and walk across Spain to the Atlantic Ocean. That would have been about a 1,600-kilometer trip. But I was reading and seeing news of Spain on fire. There were wildfires all over Spain, as well as all of Europe at that time, to be honest. But everywhere I was planning on going, there were fires going throughout the Caminos. Many of my friends were on the Caminos and had to evacuate in Spain for several days and go to different trails and things like that. So walking in 38 to 40 degree temperatures, heading to the country on fire, I decided I'm going to wait. So I ended my trail early and came back to Albania. But I will be going back, and I'll tell you more about that this trip, seeing some of the beautiful sights I had in the near future.
Great, Tony. Will you bring back some pictures for us and do a session in November or December, in the darks of the winter when we don't get much daylight in the UK?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that would be brilliant. What's going on in Hawaii, Carl Walsh? What have you been up to? I hope you've been watching Arsenal on the TV, but we won't go there.
Well, first of all, I'm not in Hawaii anymore. I'm back in Pasadena. I spent the summer doing things pretending that I'm young again, just like Tony. I lost 30 pounds plus and still working on it. But in Hawaii, don't tell anyone the environment that we're in now, but I took part in protests, and I'm continuing to do so because it's time people spoke out before we lose the whole thing here. So I did that. And believe me, you've never partied until you've done a protest in Hawaii. Even the police joined us. So
Wow.
It was a lot. A protest in Hawaii is fun. So So great. That was great. But we came back to Pasadena. Now our home was a half a mile from where they stopped the fire back in January. We came back 3 weeks ago, and we came home to now the house is fine, except that inside was covered with ash and soot. So that's what we've been doing ever since. We have a huge job cleaning out the house, throwing away a lot of things that can't be saved, a lot of clothes, some furniture. So that's our task right now for the end of summer and going into the fall. Not fun, but hey, got to be done, and we get to renew everything. So that's what I'm up to and what I was up to. And believe me, come to Hawaii, join our protests, and have some fun. There you go.
Two quick questions on that, Carl. Number one, remind us how far the fires were, those California fires were away from your home.
Well, they on the night that it started, they were able to stop it about a half a mile up the street from us because we're down right at the bottom of the canyon, and they were able to stop it at the main road there. Thank God. And then the wind shifted a bit and sent it in another direction, and that's when it took out over 9,000 structures in Altadena. And about a week and a half.
What about insurance, Carl?
Of course, they're trying not to pay.
Yeah.
And it's getting tough. Now, I will say the people that came through like crazy is the Army Corps of Engineers. They've gone through and leveled the burned out lots. They had to go down 2 feet to get rid of the toxic soil. And now they're finding out they may have to go down 9 feet in order to get rid of everything. So it's a heck of a job, but as usual, the Army Corps of Engineers are solid. They did it for free. And some foolish people didn't want to sign and allow them to do it. And now they're angry that they have to pay for it from contractors. Well, foolish, but that's their problem.
Thanks, Carl. That's brilliant. Amy, what have you been up to? What have you learnt in all your trips in the summer? You're muted.
So, thank you, Derek.
There's a problem with your sound, Amy. There's a problem with your. Yeah, Amy, there's a problem. There's a problem with your sound, with your broadband.
And
no.
Okay,
Amy,
am I back?
Try again. Say something to me now.
Okay, I'm here now. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
All right, sorry. Yeah, so we moved home after 18.5 years this summer. So we right-sized. We didn't downsize, we right-sized for the appropriate size house for where we are right now. And I have a new business partner, which is my garden, a new garden. And it has taught me the most incredible things about life and work and transformation and growth and beauty and patience and seasons and change, so many things. It's just been the most amazing co-creator that I could possibly imagine. So yeah, I have only moved 11 miles, but I've got a completely different ecosystem, and we have slow worms and deer, and it's just beautiful. I just can't tell you how fabulous being in this space is. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Wow, congratulations. And David Skinner's coming on in 2 weeks' time to talk about a dose of nature, because he's researching some of that. And Tim Durkin talked to us about forest bathing 4 years ago. And, I've been standing in the local forest looking at some of these trees, which must be hundreds and hundreds of years old. And if we go up to Scotland now to Inverness, Carol, if you like to unmute yourself. Tracy, that's a part of the UK you never got to, North Scotland. north. There's not a lot of daylight in the winter, is there, Carol?
There's not, but at this time of year, there's more daylight than there is probably anywhere else in the UK and
Yeah.
in a lot of places. Wow. I haven't got any one big thing that I've done this summer because the summer's been mainly about working. And there's lots of resonance with lots of people here. My garden is my sort of pride and joy. I've been in the house 3 years, and every year I add a new flower bed, and it's coming into fruition, which is great. I've been working for a number of years on building on social media, so listening to you, Max, was wonderful. And I'm almost at 1K on YouTube. Trying to just get there over that hurdle. So in terms of new things, I went to Turkey with my kids in June, and we went to see the city of Ephesus, which was just incredible. And to be there and walking down the hill and the sun shining and the library of Ephesus standing there, the facade is still there, the back of the building is still there, and just thinking how long that place of knowledge has been standing, has been of a resource to humans. And we tend to think that the last 200 years costs, sort of counts for the knowledge base that we tap into. But of course, in other parts of the world, there's some phenomenal information out there that's taught mankind and humanities for a very, very long time. So I've been creating my own online library of all my course material that I have been building up over the last 15 years until the last 3 years. It was live before that, and the last 3 years has been all online. So I now have a huge resource of videos and in a very niche market. I'm trying to bring that out into the world. So I've been running since May free group sessions, introducing the form of, I call it healing, and someone called me out in this recently and said, well, what conditions do you heal? I said, well, I don't heal any conditions. I don't treat any conditions. The body heals itself if you take it into a less stressed state and if you sort of try to optimize. So I've been trying to support people in the current energetics of the world that we live in, which has been touched on a little bit by Carl and by some other people, that these are troubled times, they're uncertain times, and people are very anxious about the future. There's fires, there's political crises, there's all sorts of things going on. So I started off running my £10 group sessions, and then I changed it to free because it was simpler than administrating it. But actually, I really like doing it free because it feels like you're giving something back, and we have people from all around the world who join us every second or third Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. UK time. And it's not a plug because you don't know where to join us, but we
We
are
want
open.
we want you to plug it, Carol. Of
Do
course,
you?
it's the whole point of Monday Night Live, especially when it's free, because as a negotiator, I like free material. I don't like paying for anything, as people well know me. Carol, will you put the links in the chat box, please, for everybody, and send them to me, and I can put them in my newsletter. And we probably need just a little description of what you do. As you say, you're not a healer, you're somebody that helps other people sort themselves out.
So I kind of express myself as being like the BBC. I broadcast out using a broadcast tool called the Lecher Antenna. Information that's held within a range of natural products, and I work with people all over the world at distance in the same way that we're talking on Zoom now. The distance thing sounds a bit woo-woo and weird, but actually people have been communicating across distance for a very, very long time, and it's quite simple to do. So
Brilliant.
Just put out the request, is there something that I can do to help people face the stress of the world energy as it is at this point in time? So we're under the influence of the sun being active and hot at the moment, the earth weather systems being very strange, and the political climate that we live in. So in my worldview, we're very yangy, hot, fast, radiant. That leads to, if it's uncontrolled, fires, aggression, all sorts of things. So I do a fusion of Chinese medicine with physics, with more meditation, guided visualization,
Chinese medicine with physics and meditation. Okay, I
And
think
dosing.
we better leave it there because that's the
Yeah.
power of three, and we all know about the power of three. Thanks, Carol. Put those links in, and we'll look forward to seeing you and passing on some of your energy via Zoom to all of us, which I think we need it. That would be brilliant.
You'd all be very, very welcome this Thursday if you wish to join us.
Thank you. We'll put the links in. How about you, Jill? Jill, you were an original member of Monday Night Live. You joined me on the very first session, the first day of COVID. What have you been up to?
Oh, all sorts, but I'll just tell you a couple of little bits. I also went to a folk festival. A friend of mine had tickets to Cropredy. Cropredy is a village near Banbury, and it started off 20 years ago as the farewell gig for a band called Fairport Convention.
Mm.
And they've been doing it every year apart from COVID time since. And that was very different from your festival, John, in that there was one stage and all the musicians have been handpicked by the guys from Fairport. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I really, really enjoyed that. Fabulous weather, great food, incredible musicianship. So that was lovely. But the thing that I learned is I grow tomatoes each year. Now, for a whole bunch of reasons, I didn't tidy up my grow bags from last year. I put my seedlings in early. I did them indoors as I normally do. I then managed to pick them up and tip them out and break most of them. So bother, need to start again. I found some seeds that were well out of date, put those in. They pretty much all came out. So when it came to time to put them in, they were a bit spindly, but that's fair enough. Okay. I went outside to discover that the grow bags that I hadn't tidied away, one of them had a load of volunteers who'd grown from tomatoes that had fallen off in the previous season. And those volunteers were bigger and stronger and more prolific than the ones that I put in and lovingly cared for. Mine are coming good now. They're a bit late, but I think, do you know what? Next year I might just shove them in outdoors. Never mind looking after them carefully. Let them fend for themselves because they seem to do that much better when I lead them to it.
Brilliant, Jill. I'm sure there's some sort of metaphor or message in that that you can send me for my newsletter next Monday.
I don't know about that, but I'll think on it.
No, thank you. I see Mike Foley's joined us. Mike, you've joined us from Dorchester. Those of you that remember Mike from Monday Night Live, Mike's responsible for 7,000 students, 700 teachers at the Wessex Academy Trust. And Mike, you don't even look stressed.
There's obviously bad reception tonight, Derek. I mean, does everybody know I'm only 25? So
you've lost a bit of hair since I last saw you, actually, by the look of things. Mike, what's going on in the schools? Just for a couple of minutes, what's happening at the moment?
Yeah, so we've just obviously returned for the new term, Derek. So everything's a little bit fresh and new, 2 weeks in, but lots of change in education. We're waiting for a curriculum review nationally that's due to publish sometime this term. We've also waiting on a white paper on special educational needs, which is in a really tricky place in education. There is a need for major reform there. And the third thing we're waiting for, or we've just had actually, I shouldn't say waiting for, that's the one that has been announced, is a change to inspection. And I did text you earlier on, Derek, I wanted to join you at 5 o'clock, but this was the first training session this evening, 4:30 to 5:30, on the new framework, which is about to kick in after half term in November. So I've got 2 days in Bristol in October, quite intensive days, the training, getting ready for that. Because I said, I think when I was on before, that as well as running the trust, I also do Ofsted inspections. So there's a lot going on.
So that's the training for Ofsted inspections, which you do, which has had a lot of bad publicity, hasn't it, over the last 5 years? I suppose it always will get bad publicity inspecting state schools, but yeah.
It's interesting, Derek, because they put out a consultation and it was due to be the results of that were due to be published before the summer, and it was delayed. I think it's fair to say that it got a poor response, particularly from the professionals, and particularly from head teachers. But it is going to be implemented, and it will go ahead later this term. So it's been a tricky time for us, I think, trying to negotiate a way forward when maybe it wasn't greeted terribly well in the profession. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Oh, well, good luck with all that, Mike. I look forward to catching up with you in the autumn. Thanks for joining us.
Well,
let's go now. Mary Casson, you're there. Mary was an original member of Monday Night Live 5 years ago, and Mary's done notes for me for all sorts of for a number of years. Mary, what have you been up to?
Quite a quiet summer, but something recently. I was lucky enough to get on a tour of Buckingham Palace Garden.
Oh wow!
And what surprised me, it's a regular garden. It's not super curated or queue-like, but there were a lot of trees, and a lot of these trees were planted as gifts or in memory of birthdays. Some of them were huge and very old, and it was just a sort of reminder of the permanence of trees and how planting things can leave a lasting memory. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be anything special, because it's there in everyday life.
And when you look around London, or if you look around London or anywhere, some of those trees that are 500 years old and been watching what's been going on for 500 years, it makes you
could tell some tales.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know, what's brilliant. George Glass, you're a new member today. I'm wondering what you've been up to, apart from introducing me at the SEMA conference next Thursday. You're muted, George.
Yeah, no, I'm back on now. Well, having retired a couple of years ago, I'm getting a bit idle, but in terms of the big things in the summer, I think probably one of the things that happened was there was a guy that I was at university with. In fact, he studied with my wife because they're both architects, and we tried to celebrate his 70th birthday, and it was put off by COVID. He lives in Provence, so we said, right, 5 years on, we'll have another crack. So we went down to see him, had a great party. But what I found really amusing was that in the best tradition, we decided to take some coals to Newcastle. So we took a bottle of local champagne, local to us here in Kent. And the other thing I took, because as Derek knows, I spent the last 5 years of my working life was spent as the finance guru for a rather well-known Sussex brewery, a family business called Harvey's. Anybody who's been in that corner of the country would know it. And so I took some cans of Harvey's with me as well, just I thought, just a joke. And in the middle of the party, this guy comes up to me and he says, I just don't believe it. He said, I walked up to the bar and asked for a pint of Harvey's and they gave me one. And I just found, I was completely gobsmacked because it was just one of those great things. I suppose the other thing which I've been doing during the summer, and in fact, not just during the summer, the last 2 or 3 years, is that I volunteer on a heritage railway. And I won't bore you with all the details, but
you don't need to bore us because there's 2 of us that volunteer on a heritage railway. Yeah.
So I'm passed out as a crossing keeper on a couple of crossings. I guard on some of the trains, and just because you tend to get dragged in for your past experiences, I also maintain a big chunk of the network, which of course has to be completely hidden, but is an important part of what's on the back of the heritage. And I think one of the things that's brought home to me is actually recognizing I think we were talking about all that glisters isn't gold. And I think that we have a number of volunteers who are very noisy and very opinionated, and we tend to work rather away from them. There are others who say very little, and they're really the driving force behind the whole place. And I think this is just so typical of a lot of these organizations. And the trick is working out who are the true movers and shakers, because you can't see them.
Yeah, absolutely right, George. That's brilliant, George. Presumably that's the Kent and East Sussex Railway at Tenterden.
It is, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
I
which
see.
of course is also interesting because they're in the process of extending it
Yeah, to Robertsbridge.
through to Robertsbridge.
Yeah, so I've taken some of Carol Robertson's teaching, so I've become psychic. So that's right. Am I allowed to say that, Carol? And of course, John Baker and I are involved in the Swanage Railway, although I'm not quite as involved in as John, who's
Yeah.
who will probably be the chairman of the Swanage Railway shortly, if I have anything to do with it. But brilliant.
Lucky chap.
Yeah,
You have anything to
John
do
and
with
I
it,
have
will we?
discussed the people that make things happen. Too many spectators and not enough doers in organisations like that, isn't there? But no, that's brilliant. Nigel Kirby, I expect you've been up to no good in East Anglia over the summer.
Well, not quite, Derek. I've changed jobs, so I'm now the research project manager at the aptly named CEUPS, which stands for the Centre for Excellence and Equality in Uniform Public Services, based at Anglia Ruskin. So it's project managing a 11.3 million pound UKRI project across police, fire, ambulance, prison service. So it's working with a number of leading professors, and one of my challenges is to introduce the research team and the collaborators to Miro, because I think that is a great way to collect.
What's Miro, Nigel?
Miro is a graphical online whiteboard tool that has lots of templates. But John will resonate with this, is that there will be people who are introverts who don't like talking out, don't like speaking out. So you can use anonymous voting to surface issues, because some of the research looks at trauma-based. So therefore you have to be mindful that you don't re-traumatize somebody by, asking them research questions. So my challenge is to get the academics as excited about the potential for Miro as I believe it can be, and then to extend that into other services, like, for example, the Ministry of Justice, that you need to have clearance for ethics on research in the prison service, as an example, and to show them, by not giving that clearance to the researchers, how that can affect the front line, because everything is interrelated. And it's about what is going on in the heart and mind of the individual who's wearing the uniform. So it's a different social sciences research, but one of the things I'm hoping to do is to help champion that silent voice and make it heard.
Fantastic, Nigel. Well, we wish you a great deal of success with that, and come on and tell us all about it in a few months' time.
Better still, I can bring you different professors who will be able to give you all sorts of research and areas that still need to be researched. So I'll hold you to that.
You mean academic things? With my 3 GCSEs, I'd never understand, Nigel, don't you? Yeah, no.
I'll decode it for you, Derek.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. Andrew Plumridge, you're last but not least, sir. What have you been up to? You're muted. Yep.
Well, I had a brief trip to Northumberland, and if anybody has not been to Northumberland, it's not the dark, bleak place that you imagine it to be. It's actually quite a spectacular county, so certainly encourage people to do that. So the highlight so far has been a trip to see the restored Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, which is spectacular. They've done a really amazing job at restoring the church, cleaning the whole thing from top to bottom. I've never seen it look as good as it does today. There's still, the average member of the public still can't get up to see the roof, but that tours for that will come around in due course. Just coming a little bit closer to home for you, Derek, I'm taking a party of people over there at the end of the month for a tour of churches. And I was reminded of something that an old friend of mine who now works for the Foreign Office once told me, and that was, given the choice to negotiate between the French and a group of terrorists, you'd go for the terrorists every time because they're easier to appease. I have to say, trying to negotiate anything with the French is a bureaucratic nightmare. And even when you write and say, I'm confirming this, you get another email a day or two later saying, can you confirm this? And it's exactly the same as you've written. So it's been a very frustrating time trying to organize a tour, but the trip is going to come up, and it's going to be a fantastic couple of days, just leading around looking at 5 of the finest churches in the center of Paris.
Make sure you've got your camera with you, Andrew, so you can share that with us at some stage. It's interesting negotiating with the French. I've had some experience of that, and I hadn't read up about it beforehand, but they are really difficult people to negotiate with for the English. I think that's because of our history. We may only be 20 miles apart across the English Channel, but oh boy, are we different. And I don't know what value we're getting for the money that we're paying them to stop the boats crossing from Calais, but I don't see many boats. I still a lot of boats arriving still, but there we are. I'm going to stop the recording now, if I might, and stay on for as long as we like to informally talk. But thank you everybody for joining Monday Night Live. And if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on a podcast channel, please join us another time, because we have some very, very, very interesting and knowledgeable lifelong learners on Monday Night Live. So thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on the next recording.